What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Jason Timpf, host of Hoops Tonight over on The Volume. JT, we got some good games last night, man, more than we bargained for.
Man, I know you and I have been in that Friday slot where we've been dealing with the nights where the NBA is like, we have no interest in competing with the NFL. And we got like one heck of a Monday night slate last night. And all the stars were just awesome. Jaylen Brown was awesome. Cade Cunningham was awesome. All four stars were awesome in the Rockets game. It was just like a showcase of some of the league's best talent.
Which is always nice, man, when you get the good players playing well, because it gives you a lot to talk about. On this show, we're going to start with the Nuggets and the Rockets. That was the marquee game last night, two of the top teams in the Western Conference, but we will touch on those other ones. Celtics, Pistons. Cooper Flagg, might as well check in with him. He had a career night last night, 42 points. And then later on, we're going to preview the Cup Final, which is tonight. Of course, the Spurs and the Knicks. And I want to talk about end of games. I talked about it a little bit with Mark Stein over the weekend, just a little bit, but I thought you'd be a good person to talk about. Is it a problem that so many of these games devolve into reviews, timeouts, and free throws at the end of game? Is there anything the NBA can do about it? We'll debate that at the end of the show, but we're going to start with our FanDuel game breakdown and pick a game from last night to do a little bit of a deep dive on. And what better game than the Nuggets and the Rockets? Nuggets get the win 128-125 in overtime. Not without a little bit of controversy, but to your point, this was a game that the stars showed up. Şengün, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Kevin Durant had 25 on 8 of 14 shooting. Jokic, 39, 15, and 10. Jamal Murray had 35 points of his own. Star-studded affair, and this game delivered. Both games between Denver and Houston have been close, like the whole game, not just close at the end or whatever, but have been back and forth games, battles, playoff-like intensity. This one, both teams had multiple days to prepare for this one. I talked to David Adelman at practice. He said it's going to feel like a playoff game because you never get to prep for the other team this much in the regular season. So both teams came in with a game plan of let's figure out how to beat the, how to get the win here. That's what was interesting. So what stood out to you about this one?
So this was a classic crunch time battle. And for a long time there, neither team could guard each other. But the Denver Nuggets, to start overtime, got 3 straight stops.
Yep.
And they scored on the other end 3 straight times. And that really was the difference in this game. And just really tiny, quick aside, I hate it when people complain about officiating after games like that. Because I want to be like, you want to get worked up about a tripping foul that led to 1 free throw as the reason why you lost the game when you allowed the opponent to score on 7 consecutive possessions in crunch time. Like that to me is a loser's mentality. Like, to focus on what you can control. It's like the Suns fans complaining after the Lakers game. You gave up a 24-0 run in that game and you're complaining about a call at the end. Like, at a certain point, focus on what you can control. And ultimately the difference in that game was, again, these are 2 teams that have struggled with their crunch time defense this season, both Denver and Houston. As between the 2 of them, they've lost 12 games this year in crunch time. And for both teams, they've struggled with their defense. The difference is we've seen Denver be able to focus up and get stops at the end. And usually they do that by being aggressive and rotating on the back line. And at the start of OT, they brought Jokic up to the level on Reed Sheppard, and Şengün botched a short roll where he missed Jabari Smith. It kind of led to a broken down possession where Reed Sheppard missed a little mid-range jumper. KD went down, and I thought he rushed that mid-range jumper over Spencer Jones. Spencer got a great contest. They didn't run any action. KD just ran down to the elbow and shot a pull-up and missed it. Then on the third one, Jokic wanted to protect himself in the ball screen, so he sent Cam Johnson in a pre-switch up to guard Şengün in the 2-man game. The Rockets countered by saying, forget the ball screen, let's just post up. And Cam Johnson did his job. He walled up, took that contact in the chest and forced Şengün into a make-miss type of shot, one of those left shoulder hooks from like 12 feet, and he missed it. That was really the difference. On the other end, I thought the Nuggets did a really nice job of running early action to get Reed Sheppard switched on to Jamal before they got into their two-man game. And Jamal was just super comfortable working against Reed in those ball screens. And I thought Jamal was just a maestro in pick and roll down the tail end of this game, getting into the pocket to Jokic, hitting that gap when Şengün stayed on the roller for the layup, that quick post up of Reed Sheppard where he hit the right shoulder fade. It was just a masterclass from Jamal in ball screens down the stretch. Again, 7 straight scoring possessions for Denver spanning the end of regulation and overtime, and then 3 stops at the top of overtime. That was really the difference in the game.
The 3 stops in OT for sure was the difference, but I like what you brought up. I mean, there's a lot there, and I want to put the defense aside. The top thing I want to talk about, you mentioned Jamal Murray and the Denver offense. That was the number 2 ranked defense in the NBA, the Houston Rockets, coming into the night. Denver puts up a 121.4 offensive rating per cleaning the glass in this game. And they did it, without Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson goes out. So you're closing the game with Spencer Jones, who hit a couple big shots. He's a two-way player, and he's out there. And Denver kind of had to figure out who their 5th player was going to be situationally, but they still were able to score, and they're able to score because of the Jokic-Murray two-man game, and Jamal in particular, who is just having by far his best season of his career. Not by a little bit, by a wide margin. And you saw it last night. One of the things that's interesting about Denver is they can score just rhythm offense throughout the game, but when you get to the clutch, it's a death sentence against Denver to have a guard on your team who can't defend, because that means you're going to be running two-man action, defending two-man action against the best two-man game in the NBA, and you're going to be doing that with a below-average defender. In this case, it's Reed Sheppard. And one of the things about Jamal is they can beat you in that two-man game just with like pick and rolls and making the defense rotate, but he's also a big guard. People don't realize this. He's 6'5", and he's a great post player or just back to the basket or hip to the basket player. And when you get a player like Reed Sheppard, even if you defend all the actions well, which is hard enough, you're still going to end up with Jamal Murray against a small, undersized defender where he can put his back to him and get some kind of shot off. And some of those shots you're talking about were just Jamal walking Reed Sheppard down to the block, giving him a little move and getting to his space. And it's just too easy. So that's one of the things that makes Denver so unique, that two-man game. And you have to have defensive guards on the court in clutch time, because you're probably not going to outscore Denver offense to defense.
Yeah, and you mentioned the injuries, like that took away the vertical spacing window, because like there were a couple plays in that game. There was one where Spencer Jones was on the left block and Jokic just didn't throw it because he's like, I don't think Spencer's going to be able to score over the top. And the reason why was because a few possessions earlier, he did hit Spencer Jones on kind of an inside seal against Şengün, and Spencer tried to hit that little lefty hook over the top and he smoked it off the back rim. And so like you had an entire dimension of the Nuggets offense missing down the stretch of that game because they were down their 3 best athletes. But those corner threes from Spencer Jones in the right corner, man, what huge shots from him, because he missed 2 really good looks earlier in the game, but he made the 2 big ones late. And I think, one of the underrated parts of that sequence is there are a lot of guys who will make those reads, but they'll be a second late. You'll see guys miss those reads. Like I thought Şengün missed Jabari Smith wide open in the dunker spot on that first 4-on-3 that they had to start overtime. But a lot of times like guys will hit that corner pass, but it'll take them just that extra second to process and to make the pass. And the pass will just be a little bit slower and a little bit off target. And so it gives you an opportunity to rotate and get a contest. Jokic, and I was literally thinking about this when you guys were celebrating Jokmiss yesterday. I was thinking about how like these guys have just been playing together a decade. Like a decade.
So long,
they've
man.
been together for so long. And so they've seen all these coverages so many times for so many years that it's become second nature. And like both of those kicks from Jokic to Spencer Jones in the corner were one-timers, to steal a hockey term, where he would just basically catch it and immediately feed it. And it was like on time, on target. So there was like no chance for KD to rotate back out to the 3-point line. So those were like really comfortable catch and shoot threes for Spencer Jones. And again, like Jamal Murray, we talked about this in our episode last week on Friday, but he's been the best pick and roll player in the league this year at volume. Obviously Jokic plays a role there, but he just so firmly understands his assignment in those ball screens. Like he understands that like his job is to get the ball to Jokic in the pocket if it's there, and if the big stays glued to Jokic, to look to score. And he kind of towed that balance perfectly that entire crunch time. And then the last thing I want to call attention to is the Jokic pick and pops. So one of the things with drop coverage is it essentially concedes a pick and pop three. There's
Yep.
no way to guard the pick and pop three with a drop unless you rotate from the weak side. And we did see an example of that. That was the one where Jokic threw the extra pass to Tim Hardaway Jr. on the right wing, and he just missed that three off the front of the rim. But essentially, Jokic and his ability to basically make Şengün pay for sitting back in a drop by just hitting those threes at the top of the key, that was a huge part of the chess match at the end of this game. And he hit another one, the one with just over a minute left, which kind of fundamentally operated like a pick and pop. He just had the ball the whole time. And that was where they had Jamal kind of curl off of him into the lane. And similarly, Şengün had to drop back to help on Jamal's cut. So Jokic is wide open. He had the ball the whole time, but it functions the same as a pick and pop. And he just hits that three at the top of the key. And that really is the problem. Like there's nothing that they don't have a counter for in terms of a defensive coverage. Like the one thing that they didn't try down the stretch was switching. Houston. They didn't try switching, but like we all know how that story ends. That's Reed Sheppard on Nikola Jokic. Like, and that's going to the post, and he's either going to get another double team for a kick out or he's going to get something easy at the basket. And like Jokic was a battering ram in this game. I think he had 4 offensive rebound putbacks of his own misses. Like anytime he missed something in the middle of the floor, he just followed it right to the front of the rim and got it and put it right back in. They looked indomitable on offense in this game.
The Jokic 3-point thing is big because it's the something he added last year, shot 41% from three, shooting that again this year. So it feels like now that we have a year and a quarter, I guess, of data, it feels like something he's grown more and more comfortable with. And to your point, it does open up another dynamic. It's not that they're looking for it all the time. It's that it's the counter now to if you're going to try to sag off and really pack the paint against Denver, he's going to stretch it out to the 3-point line. And he goes 5 of 9 last night. And a lot of those were in the clutch. In fact, this game, I mean, more than anything, we should just step back and say what a fun game this was. There was that sequence in the fourth quarter where it was like 7 straight threes each way. It was just like call and response, man, for, I don't know, 3 minutes of game clock. And you're like, wow, nobody's going to lose this team. Just somebody's going to win, or this game, somebody's going to win it. And that's what made it so fun. There's so much shot making and talent on the floor between these two teams that you can get those little runs. But Jamal Murray, I also want to highlight here for one other thing. Because he's now in shape and having his best season, I think it really highlights how fun of a player he is. And I think this part is maybe a little underrated. Like, you know, you have pick and roll point guards who are just good in the pick and roll. You guys that can shoot threes or whatever. Jamal Murray, you're going to think this is crazy. And you're probably going to disagree with it, but I've watched enough of him to feel confident about this. He is in the mold of a Kobe type as a point guard, meaning he's not like Kobe. He's not as good as Kobe. I'm talking about, he relies so much on footwork, and he has footwork in the post. He's a phenomenal post-up player. He has footwork in the pick and roll. He has the crossover sidestep footwork and that jittery footwork. A lot of guys, it's like 1 or 2 different things and they just hammer you home with it because they do this. Jamal Murray kind of has a very wide skill set. It's maybe not elite at any one thing, but it's a wide skill set. And so when you get him at nights like last night, he's beating you from multiple spots. He's doing a bunch of different types of things. And I think because of that, he's just so fun to watch. It's not super speed, it's super footwork and great shot making. He's not always in shape like this or playing at this level, but when he is, I think he's up there as the most entertaining players.
Oh, absolutely. I think a classic example of the dynamic you're talking about is the Luka versus Shea thing. Like, I think Shea's been a better basketball player than Luka this season by a half decent margin, actually.
For sure.
But one of the things that I think Luka makes Luka just a tiny bit better watch, like in terms of just like a television product, is like he's going to hit 3 or 4 shots every game that are like horse shots. And it's because one of the most important parts of scoring, in my opinion, is creativity. And Jamal Murray is like creative as a scorer. He will take 1 or 2 shots every game that are not necessarily shots that he's like practicing behind the scenes, but that he'll just like switch his angle or go off of the wrong foot or like turn with his shoulders a little bit awkward or something like that. He'll take shots that a lot of players won't take. And so Jamal's like a show on TV because he's
Yeah.
just such a remarkable creative shot maker. And you don't have to worry about me agreeing with you. I'm like one of the bigger Jamal fans out there. I get criticized for how much I believe in Jamal. I just think maybe it's just because I'm a Laker fan and so I'm just scarred deeply from all the damage that he's done to me over the years. But like I just am a big believer in Jamal. I think he's awesome. And I think, I'm glad you mentioned how entertaining the game was. We've been talking a lot about how good Denver is. Like, it's worth mentioning Houston was also masterful down the stretch of this game, and they came very close to getting a win. Yep. I thought they did a lot of damage to Denver's ball screen coverages. Like, they tried switching a couple times, and Houston beat it. They beat it through Şengün getting that lefty hook over Spencer Jones in the middle of the floor. They beat it by catching him trying to switch back when Şengün hit that little foul line jumper after Jokic had chased Reed Sheppard out through to the corner. They ran drop coverage, and Reed Sheppard and Kevin Durant both hit pull-up threes over Jokic in drop coverage. They tried putting two on the ball, and Şengün made a short roll read to Jabari Smith in the left corner, and he hit a three. Like, they also had a brilliant offensive game. It's worth mentioning in the big picture, Houston's actually been a sneaky, very good clutch offense for a team that doesn't have a traditional point guard or a traditional super high-level playmaker. They had a 119 offensive rating last night against Denver, which is solid. And they had in the season, I think they're the 10th best clutch offense overall this year. And so they I would argue for all the talk about like, oh, they need a guard. I'd argue the bigger issue was Reed Sheppard on defense at the end of that game. I thought Reed Sheppard's ball screen reps were fine. I didn't think he made any mistakes down the stretch of that game on offense. It's just they had another small guard for Denver to attack. And, maybe that ends up being Dorian Finney-Smith, and then you just end up running more Kevin Durant ball screens. But I'm kind of like bullish on Houston's offense overall. I think it's more of just them figuring out how to get stops in crunch time.
I think it's an interesting point too about the guard thing because both teams do put you in compromising spots. And the question is, how compromised are those spots? So Spencer Jones, who's a big bodied guy, really long arms, he gets matched up on Şengün at the end. And that's obviously a mismatch. Can you do anything about it? With the game on the line, the answer was no. Şengün did a great job of just backing him down to the spot and finishing. But over the course of a game, does he get a couple of those? Jamal Murray is a big guard, and he's a really good – Jamal Murray was a post player coming up. He just had to have been because his footwork as a defensive player and offensive player in the post is so good. But he can guard in the post. Not that he's going to shut you down, but in a pinch, can you hold your space for your spot for 2 seconds while the help comes over? Jamal Murray can do that. Reed Sheppard can't. And that's why he's so fascinating to me because the Rockets need him and have used him a lot in these closing lineups because they need the extra shooting, offense, creation on ball, those types of things. But he does change in that you have one guy who is compromised there. Jabari's huge. He's tall. Kevin Durant's enormous as well. Şengün, obviously, Amen Thompson. All those guys can switch and give you something, but Reed Sheppard can't. And it's a dynamic that I'm just not sure how it's going to play out throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by how much pick and roll they ran with Reed Sheppard at the tail end of that game. Like, Reed was getting the ball a lot. And again, I thought he didn't have a single turnover. The only shot he missed was that play where Şengün missed the read. Reed did his job. He drew a second defender to the ball, hit Şengün in the pocket. It was a 4-on-3. Jabari Smith was wide open in the dunker spot. He missed it. Then on the workaround, Reed Sheppard missed a little mid-range pull-up around the elbow, and he barely missed it. But, like, he didn't take a bad shot. Like, he moved the ball around. He got the ball back to KD after his ball screens. But, like, and again, that shot, that the pull-up three he hit on the left wing, I was like, wow, talk about a big shot for a young player in a huge game on national TV to just, like, step into a pull-up three off the dribble when you've got Kevin Durant on your team.
He's got that. He's got cojones in the clutch, though. I've seen him make enough of those now in big moments where I'm like, that guy's going to come through in the clutch if he's open.
Oh, absolutely. But, like, so to your point, to the point you're trying to make, so he also hit a catch-and-shoot three. I think it was in the left corner off of an Amen Thompson offensive rebound, kind of like middle fourth quarter. And so you're right. They need the shooting. So my thing is, like, can you take the ball screen reps and give them to KD, who is bizarrely low usage in this game, maybe give him more reps, and then have a Dorian Finney-Smith when he gets healthy, essentially bring the spot up shooting that you got from Reed, but then you have this bigger forward to give you a better chance to compete defensively in those situations.
I think that's right, and that's why Dorian Finney-Smith is such an important piece for them. They also were without Tari Eason in the game, who gives them an athletic boost, rebounding boost, just some hustle. And Denver's bench was a story in this one. Big Val had a nice little run there in the, I think the second quarter where he made a big impact on it. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a nice run. And I thought Bruce Brown, who's been a little bit more up and down this year with Denver, I thought he gave them really big minutes defensively. Like just that he, in the championship year, it wasn't that Bruce was making all these points or doing all this stuff. He just got you extra possessions, rebounds, guarded with versatility. And I thought he did that last night. Last night was the most perhaps that he's reminded me of the championship season version of himself. And it wasn't like it was a crazy stat line, 2 points. He did have 9 rebounds, which was big, but 2 points, 4 assists, 3 steals. That type of bench versatility, the difference really was the bench. And to your point, those guys are going to be off the bench and giving them some depth that I think will change the dynamic a little bit.
I thought they defended really well in their bench groups last night overall, because it was like kind of a weird. Like Jonas was just fouling the heck out of everybody every time down the floor. It was a little out of control, and they actually had a unit out there with no Jamal and no Jokic in the first half where they were positive. I was like really surprised by that. Ended up going positive in that unit, and a couple of guys hit shots, and they were just really strong defensively in that unit. The Bruce play at the end of the third quarter where he got the steal and the layup. Huge play, because and you could just tell he wanted that one bad, because a few minutes earlier he had a bad turnover to Reed Sheppard in a 2-man game sequence with Jokic at the top where he just kind of really it over. And Reed Sheppard goes down and gets and Jokic was pissed, and everyone was pissed for good reason, because it was it's a big momentous play. I think it put Houston up 6 or something like that at that point in time, if I remember correctly. But he completely made up for it with a pick 6 of his own there down the stretch, and that was a tough finish too. Like he went athletic to the rim. I think Şengün was chasing him down, if I remember correctly, but it was like a tough finish there in traffic. And again, like we've been talking about this, but over the course of the last couple of weeks, that the Jokic off minutes have been better and better, and they keep trending up towards that even, which is, I predicted before the season they'd be very slightly positive. I've been wrong so far, but we are tilting closer to that being a reality.
Let's talk now about the controversial calls in this game, or really just the one controversial call. So Şengün gets a bucket with 2.3 seconds left to put Houston up 1 point. And Denver has a sideline out of bounds. They call a timeout, so you advance the ball and you get a sideline out of bounds. And before I set the table, so then Tim Hardaway Jr. hits the floor. They kind of blow a late whistle on it. They blow a late whistle. They go to review. Houston challenges it, and the official, Zach Zarba, determines that Amen Thompson made contact with Tim Hardaway Jr.'s foot, caused him to trip, and therefore it is a technical foul because it happened before the ball got inbounded. Obviously, it was a huge reason the game went the way that it went. Denver ties it, and it goes to overtime. Before I say anything else, what did you make of that call in that moment?
So, I mean, here's the thing. By the book, it was a foul. If you watch the replay, there's a slow-mo replay. I've seen it going around on social media where essentially Amen Thompson's shin... Yeah, his shin hits Tim Hardaway's foot. And like anybody who's ever played basketball knows, like if someone hits your foot while you're running full speed, like you're going down. You're going down like a tree. Like it's just impossible. It's too much. Sprinting is too much of a refined motion to be disrupted like that. Like you're going to fall down. On the same hand, like I understand why Rockets fans would be frustrated. Like the spin move from Jokic, it was one of those like 50-50 calls that could have gone either way. The trip, you know, maybe you argue it's just a bunch of athletes playing hard, like that sort of thing can happen. It was kind of like an incidental bit of contact. My counter to that would be like literally these kinds of calls are just a part of the game of basketball. Like you know when you're a basketball player, you're like, oh, if we get in a close game tonight, there's probably going to be a half dozen calls over the final 3 minutes of the game. And, you know, 2 of them might go our way and 4 might go against us. 4 might go our way and 2 might go against us. Like that's like part of the game. And like ultimately you've got to be like prepared for that as an eventuality that you might be on the wrong end of a 50-50 call. And again, as soon as you go to the replay too, you got to have overwhelming evidence. And guess what? There was no overwhelming evidence that Amen Thompson didn't trip Tim Hardaway Jr. So they weren't going to overturn the call. It's just, again, these are eventualities you have to be prepared for at the end of games.
I also think the thing about the tripping was, you know, it's a tough one to get because he wasn't trying to trip him. He was trying to trail him really closely and his leg just happened to hit him. The thing is, Denver is right there. I think they had 1 timeout left, so they could have used it. The trip ended up affecting the play into where Denver would have almost certainly had to have called their last timeout on that one. So it's one of those ones where if you don't call it, Denver is now at a severe disadvantage because of the contact that you didn't call. So this one, it's like somebody was going to get a ticky-tack call, But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you affected the play. He fell down because of the contact that was made, and Denver would have had to burn a timeout. So I think they got it right. As much as it sucks for a game to come down to something like that, which Amen Thompson wasn't trying to trip him or do anything like that. He just was too close. He was trying to trail too close and unfortunately got tangled. But there were some,
and to your point really quick, like let's say they don't call that, and let's say that Jokic misses the heave and Denver loses. Do I think Denver goes to the officials after the game and complains about how they got robbed? Or do I think they go into the locker room and they go, we couldn't guard Houston down the stretch, that's why we lost?
Right,
like I think, again, it's just about focusing on the right things, at least within the locker room. It's one thing for fans to complain, but like inside the locker room, I think focusing on your controllables is the way to go.
I'm going to shift gears now. Do you have anything else on this game that you want to mention? Because I'm going to move in another direction here.
No, I think we hit everything.
So where I want to go is last night was an awesome center battle between Jokic and Şengün. And these two guys have a lot of respect for each other. After the game, Jokic has said this a couple times now, where he's like, he's a great enough player. Don't compare him to me. He's like me in a lot of ways, but he's his own player as well. And he's effective at the ways he's different. And he's said enough things that I know he has a lot of respect. Şengün has called Jokic his idol, so I think there's a nice respect for these two guys for each other. And last night, they both were great. 33-10-10 for Şengün, 39-15-10 for Jokic. And my take here is, and I've been thinking this for a while, but last night I was really thinking it. The game in 2025, whether you like it or hate the way the game has evolved, it's so different that I don't think it resembles anything about basketball pre-2015, or I shouldn't say anything, almost anything pre-2015. And I think it only barely resembles the league from 2015 to 2020, which had its own, if you think about 2015 as the Warriors three-point revolution, and okay, all of a sudden the three-point shot isn't just valuable, it's actually, you should emphasize it. You should try to set the table to get this positional versatility. You can play 5 out because you can go small and do all these things. That evolved into skilled bigs. Then you go to stretch 5. So now we have a Brook Lopez who's big and can guard inside, but he can shoot the 3. And the evolution we're at now is these versatile bigs, guys like Jokic and Şengün, who you can actually run your offense through, not just stretch the court, but run your offense through. And that creates a whole bunch of defensive evolutions. Remember what a big deal it was when the Rockets of 2017 and 18 decided to start switching everything, which felt like, okay, this is completely new. Now the league is not only through switching, zone defense is more prevalent than we've seen in a long time. The league in 2025, you can't compare eras, but you really can't even compare this era to, say, 2010, which isn't that long ago, because they're almost different sports. Who's on the court, how you play, how you defend, who you run your offense through is completely different. And I think it's under-discussed how quickly the league is evolving into something that is barely recognizable from 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's the constant move, counter move approach of offense and defensive schematics.
Yep.
Like you mentioned the zone thing, both of the national TV games last night had zone as a huge factor. Boston ran quite a bit of zone versus Detroit in that game. And I think the Nuggets ran 10 possessions of zone in the second half versus Houston last night. It's just become a staple now. Most good teams are going to throw you a zone look for a decent chunk of the game just to see if you can handle it. It's like a guaranteed curveball that you're going to get. The offensive rebounding trends, I think it was Fred Katz wrote a big piece last week talking about how the league is basically zooming in on offensive rebounding. I heard Stan Van Gundy talking with Zach Lowe a couple weeks back about how teams are really emphasizing ball pressure and trying to commit more fouls in hopes of forcing more turnovers to spark more of those transition opportunities. Again, it's teams are constantly trying to win margins. You mentioned how different, this is crazy. In 2015, the average NBA team attempted 22 threes per game. This year, it's 37. So, we're talking almost double the three-point volume.
Years.
It just just since 2015.
It's 10 years. It just doubled. But think about how that year was defined by the three-point shot entering the game and how crazy it is. And we've doubled it since then.
I know. The pace stuff, I think all these teams are figuring out. It's just a simple math equation. We're going to be 20% more efficient if we're in transition than we are in the half court. So why don't we try to run as much as possible? It's a copycat league. It's everyone sees Tyrese Halliburton throwing kick-ahead passes, and then everyone in the league's throwing kick-ahead passes now, trying to get up the floor in transition as fast as possible. Now, there is another side to this coin, which is that it tends to kind of oscillate up and down in various ways. So, for instance, 3-point volume is actually down a little bit from last year. And a big part of that is a lot more defensive schemes are built around the idea of chasing teams off the line, right? And like, it just is, it's super fascinating. And we've seen so many different, like we've seen teams like try to protect their weakest defenders in ball screens with pre-switching and like different like defensive schematical counters to what the offenses are doing. And it's just turned into this massive chess match that's constantly oscillating back and forth between the offense and the defense. And it's just, to me, Adam, like I have a healthy respect for the history of the NBA and the players that came before, but I'm a firm believer that this is the highest level that basketball has ever been played at. And I just think that over time, as we constantly learn from our predecessors, we just get better at this kind of thing. And I think basketball at the NBA level is more sophisticated than it's ever been.
I think all of those things are fair. And I like you, I think that the league should be built standing on the shoulders of giants. Every era, you're standing on the shoulders of who came before you and learning from that. So to me, that if you say something like that, it's not disrespectful. To me, exactly. It's empowering. It's like, hey, man, the guys of the 90s brought something to the league that the guys of the 2000s got to build off of, and then hand that to the next generation and everything else. There are, of course, things that have gone lost in translation from era to era. And there's things that the league was better at and players were better at 20, 30 years ago that players are worse at now. But I think strategically and from a scheme standpoint, you're right. They're optimizing. They're making it more efficient. Guys are able to do things that are more efficient, like hit the corner three, more guys that can dribble, full court press, do all these different things. So it elevates at what I think the competition is. But so now I have two thoughts on it, because now that we've kind of talked about how different it is, even from 10 years ago, let alone 15, think about the young players now. Oklahoma City is full of young players. San Antonio full of young players. And there's a lot of young players around the league that are coming in a little better than we thought. And part of me thinks these are guys that grew up in the post-2015 era of basketball. They grew up watching it. And so a lot of these concepts are not foreign to them. Just spacing is an intuitive part of the game that I think evolved in our lifetime, but young players, it didn't. That was their lifetime, was watching it. So you get guys who are just a little bit more fluent coming into the league on things like spacing, switchability on defense, guarding pick and rolls, and all the various ways to do it. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think there's something to these young players are almost in a weird way at an advantage coming into the league, because it's the only language they know is the style that they play today.
No, absolutely. I actually think what's another kind of fascinating layer to this, because we see a young team win last year in Oklahoma City. And then we see several young teams that are popping this year in the NBA between San Antonio and Detroit. Like these like legitimately young basketball teams that are performing really well in a league that typically is an older man's league. And I wonder if, Adam, the shift of the league towards ball pressure, defense to transition, offensive rebounding and corner crashing, just how much the league is being played in the open floor, drive and kick basketball, how much dribble penetration is important. I wonder if these trends in the league are skewing towards being advantageous for younger athletes as well, in a way that's making maybe a window for, like, a lot of these older teams in the league are looking physically overmatched night to night.
Yeah.
Like Memphis just beat the crap out of the Clippers last night. You know, the Lakers have been overmatched by the athletic teams in the league. Golden State has looked overmatched athletically at times. Like, I wonder how much these shifts have made it so that it's harder to be the savvy old veteran team, just because of how much this game depends on athleticism now.
I think in the regular season, even more so, because in the playoffs, you're going to get a little bit more time off. Guys are going to put a little bit more into it. But in the regular season, I think it's 100% the case that older teams look at this 4 games in a week, and every single one of them is full court pressuring you and crashing the boards and everything else. It wears you down over time. So I think that's definitely the case. And the Clippers might be the best example of this. Is they're just taking haymaker after haymaker from everybody.
Cam Spencer just talking his trash while
the Spencer brothers coming into this, again, young guys that kind of came up through this era. So it's like the translation from college to pro is a little bit more seamless than it would have been maybe 20 years ago. There's something to it. But, and here's the thing that's opposite of that. when we talk about great players of years past and could they have played, like this will sound sacrilegious, but I don't know that you could just drop some of these great players, overnight. You snap your fingers and they don't know where they are. All of a sudden they drop into 2025. The game is so different that there would be a process of them having to learn this new game. But players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, the guys that have been around for a while, LeBron came into 2003 NBA, completely different world. It evolved into 2010 and then to 2015 and then to 2020 and 2025. And yet he has been able to evolve his game, step by step into this new process. And I think that is the thing where this is where you can give respect to eras past and say great players have been able to figure out how to add the pieces of their game, even if they were unnatural to them in their early course of their career, add pieces to their game as the game has evolved to fit that. And I think that's the part that, whoever you drop from the 90s who played a style of basketball that was so different, great players, I do think, would have been able to adjust their games to whatever the skill set is that's required of this modern version.
Yeah, and to that point, 5 to 10 years from now, the game will probably be even more different. And the young stars of today will have to adapt just like the stars from the previous era. And that's the thing that's been interesting. Like with LeBron, for example, he's just had to find ways to plug different elements of his, screening and his short roll playmaking, and LeBron becoming a better spot up shooter, all these things where it's if he didn't figure this stuff out, he would have just aged out of the league. And yet he's a productive player for a very good team at age 41 because of his adaptability in that respect.
And by the way, some great players didn't evolve with the times, of the era. So it's not a given, but it does show you that it is possible. And there's some great examples of players who did evolve. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to run through some of these other games that happened last night. Celtics, Pistons, Cooper Flagg going for 42. And then we're going to try to fix the drama of late game execution in the NBA. We'll be right back. But first, listen up, everybody. Christmas is 10 days away. You don't have that much time, but I have an idea for you that is going to solve all of your shopping needs. It's Aura Frames. It's the solution. It's a personalized gift that somebody special in your life is really going to love. What is it? Well, it's this digital frame that you set up. It looks exactly like any other picture frame you would have in your house that you could set on a table. You could hang it on a wall. It looks just like a regular frame, but it's a digital one that you can upload photos to right from the Aura app on your phone, connected to Wi-Fi. So you can change a photo in the frame in real time while you're sitting on the couch. Maybe you have guests coming over and you want to update it so that it fits whatever guest you're having. You can upload the photos right on your phone and it'll pop up. Grandma's coming over. Let's put the grandma photos up. It's a really, really cool idea. You can even preload photos before it ships. So that way, if you're ordering this right now as a last minute gift, it'll come ready to go. So when the box is opened, they will already see the picture that you have selected for them. You can personalize your gift. You can share photos and videos, by the way. Maybe you want a video playing instead of just a straight photo. They have gift boxes included. Every frame comes packaged in premium gift boxes with no price tag. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Just use promo code ALLNBA at checkout. That's AURAFRAMES.com. Use that promo code ALLNBA. The deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. You've only got probably a couple more days before you'll be too late for it to arrive before Christmas. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you guys about Underdog Fantasy Sports. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, block parties, they're all back. Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. You just pick whether your favorite player will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. And if you get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Tonight, we've got the Spurs and the Knicks. Producer James, did you give me two players that you think are going to go higher or lower tonight?
I've got two for you.
Okay.
Wemby going higher than 9.5 rebounds. And Karl Anthony Towns going higher than 1.5 3-pointers made.
There you go. If you're with, hey, make sure you keep this so we can circle back on this tomorrow. I want to see if you got this right, and we'll judge you. It's incredible. Those you can play right on the app. It's a really fun game. Check it out, Underdog Fantasy, and make sure you use that code ALLNBA. Download the app today. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, or Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms_DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, or Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. Me and Jason Timpf. Celtics fall to the Pistons last night, 112-105. Kind of a sneaky big game when you just look at the standings. This separated Detroit even more from the number 3 seeded Boston Celtics, formerly number 3 seeded. What stood out to you about this one?
Yeah, Cade obviously gets the highlights, and Cade's been unbelievable. He's actually been the second best clutch player in the NBA this year behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's
saw that.
26 for 48 from the field in clutch games this year. This is a crazy stat. Last year, the Detroit Pistons were 21 and 23 in clutch games. And part of the reason is Cade wasn't very good. He was like 22 for 60 or something like that in clutch situations. So he's made 4 more clutch shots this season already than he did all of last season. And he had a couple of nasty jumpers over Derek White to ice that game. But to me, the highlight, so to speak, of how Detroit went into Boston and won that game was their defense. They've been the second best defense in the league this season behind Oklahoma City. And that was a Boston offense that had literally been lighting everyone on fire for the better part of a month now. And just achieving a level of drive and kick basketball in Joe Mazzulla's system that was, as good or better than even some of their best stretches with Jason Tatum. Like, they've just been really cooking on offense. And what stands out to me is that their defense is really good for a lot of the same reasons why Oklahoma City's defense is good. They have like a half dozen dudes who can sit in a stance and get up in the basketball and guard on the perimeter. Like, in that bench group that came in, they had a couple of bench groups spanning the end of the third and early fourth quarter where it was like Jaden Ivey and Ron Holland and Javonte Green and Karis LeVert, and like they were guarding and forcing turnovers and getting out in transition. And again, like those, like Jaylen Brown was the only guy who was really able to get any sort of dribble penetration for Boston. Derek White hit some really tough jump shots over the top off the dribble, but it's not like he was breaking them down off the bounce. Like Peyton Pritchard was a non-factor offensively in the second half. Anthony Simons had a couple of drives, but he wasn't able to get a ton of separation. Like, I just thought Detroit's perimeter defense was stifling in this game. And it's not hard to figure out how they win. Like, their formula makes sense. They can guard like crazy on the perimeter. They're really good on the margins. Like, they're plus in second chance points. They're plus in fast break points. They're plus in points off of turnovers. They win the Cade off minutes this year by almost 7 points per 100 possessions. They just control all these margins. Then they get into these clutch situations and Cade makes every shot. And their defense is still good. So like, it's just working. It's just like a classic, like elite defense plus elite shot creation equals wins.
That defensive thing is what makes a team consistent too. And if you look at the top defenses right now, number 1, Oklahoma City, I'd say they're pretty consistent. Detroit Pistons right there, number 2, Houston Rockets, number 3. All those teams find a level of consistency where you elevate just the baseline, you're likely to win. And then if your offense gives you a little something, you're almost certainly going to win. So that ability to contain is sort of the superpower of the NBA right now. We talked about how it's evolved, how hard it is to guard. Having multiple guys that can keep the ball in front is such an advantage, and they have that. If you just look at the standings, though, Toronto right now, 16-11 is the 3 seed. Miami Heat, 14-12, 1 game behind them, are the 9 seed. The Eastern Conference is, the standings in the East are even more wild than the West, in that really you can flip from the bottom of the play-in to the hosting around in the playoffs in one night in the Eastern Conference. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they've got like this cluster in the same way that the West has a cluster of like really, really good teams. The East has a cluster of like pretty good teams that are there in the middle that are doing a lot of damage, and they just kind of go up and down. And like Toronto was just on a huge slide. Miami's on a huge slide, but Boston got super hot. They made up a bunch of ground, and it's really just turning into who had the best last couple of weeks is going to be the team that moves up in that standings group. I actually have a question for you. Who do you think, like, if you had to pick between New York or Detroit today to win the conference, who would you pick?
Oh, man.
I lean slightly New York, ever so slightly.
I lean slightly Detroit, and the reason is as Detroit fans hate me for keep bringing this up, I think Detroit is a trade team at the deadline, and I think they should be a trade team at the deadline. I know they like their slow team. I will tell you this. I have evolved on this with San Antonio, and I know we'll talk about them here in a second. I was a big proponent of San Antonio, don't play around, don't do this, go for it. After seeing, them the last couple weeks, I really like Dylan Harper. They actually have a young core that I look at and say, you know what, though? It might actually be worth slow playing this one if you're San Antonio. Detroit, as much as I love them, I don't know if I feel that way. I think that they could just use the shooting and it wouldn't cost them enough for them to pass on.
Yeah, I don't think Tobias Harris, and Tobias made some big plays last night. He had a couple of nice driving kicks to Cade. He had a couple of, Tobias is a player that if you catch him on the right night, he's very valuable. But I just think going from a guy like him to a guy like Michael Porter Jr. would be just a completely a ceiling changing move for this team. Because again, one of the things with this team is they're a good offense, but they're not an elite offense. And part of the reason why is because they've got one real high level offensive player and then a lot of defensive role players in their rotation, which works. It's a working formula for them. But to me, can Michael Porter Jr. guard on the ball the way Tobias Harris can? No, but I think he's a much better defensive rebounder. I think he's a much better secondary rim protector, and he's just a completely different level of offensive player that would bring first of all, he'd be such a natural fit with Cade on kick ahead passes in transition, like he was feasting on with Jokic, and just another guy that can run a little bit of second side action and curl off of a screen and look to score. To me, and the other thing too, this isn't a Laker fan being oh, I want Herb Jones. And it's yeah, well, are the Pelicans even going to trade Herb Jones? And do you have anywhere near enough to go get him? I think if the Pistons wanted Michael, they can have him.
Right. I agree.
Brooklyn is going to want to turn Cam Johnson into 2 first-round picks, and they can do so if they flip Michael Porter Jr. for another first-round pick. Detroit has the salary to send out. They've got the draft compensation to anchor the deal. That is a real and achievable outcome. They should be at the front of that line. Especially when you've got a defense this good, and if you get a little bit more offensive firepower, you'd be a runaway favorite in that Eastern Conference.
I see it, and I always see it, and I see it in the chat right now. MPJ doesn't fit Detroit's culture. I think people don't understand the difference between MPJ does some out-of-pocket podcasts and the sacrifice he made in Denver. I mean, clearly he is showing this year that he can be a 25-point per game scorer, and in Denver, he was an efficient 19-point per game scorer because he bought into the culture. So I think Michael Porter's a good culture fit. He's not the smartest player, but to your point, playing off of Cade, I think actually fits the style of play that he is smart about, that he does understand. I think to me, I would do it, but I know Detroit fans are not there yet. We'll see if they get there later on in the year. And more importantly, we'll see if the Detroit organization sees what I see, which is Detroit can absolutely win the Eastern Conference, but I think they would have a much, much, much better chance if they added a little bit more shooting to their roster. And he's one guy that I think fits that bill.
I'm so glad you said that. Because I don't know why people can't split the difference between what he he says annoying stuff on podcasts. So does Draymond Green. He's one of the greatest winners in the history of the sport. I mean, you can probably speak to this. He was a good locker room guy, right?
I mean, he's a quiet guy. He's not a disruptive locker room guy. That's the point. I don't think he's a leader or anything like that, but he works as hard as anybody in the league. He's one of the guys that takes basketball very seriously. He had 3 back surgeries and survived it to have an NBA career. You don't do that unless you have an incredible discipline, dietary discipline, stretching discipline, workout discipline. It's his podcasting that everybody they say, oh, he says this stuff, he must be this. And it's no, he actually respects the game an enormous amount.
Guys, the trade that Denver made was specifically a roster balancing type of trade. Totally. Essentially, Denver for years had been rocking essentially 2 power forwards. And they wanted to turn one of their power forwards into a starting caliber small forward. I don't think anybody in Denver was under the opinion that Michael Porter Jr. wasn't good enough to start for a championship team. They thought they'd be better with more foot speed. They thought they'd be better with more ball handling. And by the way, Cam's been really good. And I think it's a fit that's made sense. The point is Michael Porter Jr. didn't get traded away from Denver because he's bad at basketball or because he's a bad teammate. He's a really good player, and whoever gets him is going to be a much better basketball team.
His problem is he's not a max player and he's on a max contract, but you're talking about fair. 1 year left. For Detroit, it's hey, Detroit doesn't matter. They're not worried about that yet. and he'll expire at the exact perfect moment.
And
So
he's on the fun
it makes
max,
sense.
not the crappy max.
That makes Cooper Flagg last night goes for 42 points, 13 of 27 from the field, 15 of 20 from the foul line, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. But the Mavericks lose at home to the Utah Jazz. But I just wanted to check in with you real quick on Cooper Flagg, who has really got it going after a rough, 10 games or so. What do you make of this 42-point night and getting to the line 20 times?
He's been playing pretty well in offense for a few weeks now. And one of the big things that stood out to me in the early part of the run was he wasn't settling for as many threes and he was attacking the basket more. And man, that game in Utah last night was just like the culmination of, I love when a young player kind of like realizes like, oh, there's this thing I can do and no one seems to be able to stop me when I do it. And like for Cooper, it's like when he gets that angle and he drops that shoulder and he drives with power, he can go through people to the rim. And he was just going to the basket over and over and over again. And even the jump shots he's taken these days have been shorter range jump shots in that like 10 to 14 foot range where they're just a lot easier for him to hit at a higher percentage. Like to me, by the way, Sneaky Laurie had a really nice basket attacking game last night too for Utah, just turning the corner off of off ball screens and just getting into people's chests and powering through them. I just think Cooper has learned in this recent stretch that his best trait is that he's 6'10" and strong and athletic. And that if he gets downhill, people are really having a hard time competing with his physicality. And like the finishing has been better. That whole piece too with Ryan Nembhard coming in and kind of like balancing their ball handling and turning him into more of an off-ball scorer rather than an on-ball scorer has turned him into more of like a when I catch, I'm looking to be aggressive kind of guy rather than I'm trying to manage the flow of the game kind of responsibility. And I just think all of it has come together for him in a big way.
Cooper Flagg, if you watch his footwork, like he has kind of a ability to make these very wide strides. It's the same thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, by the way. I think part of what makes Shai so great, it's the skill level, but the body gives him this like really long separation between his steps. And so he's so good with like pivoting off and turning different directions. And his stride, just like on those types of moves, is twice the length of a lot of defenders' stride. And so he's able to generate a lot of space. Cooper Flagg has this when he's getting downhill because he kind of leans forward at a really crazy level. He's got great balance and he puts his head forward and his legs separate by so much that he gets around you by just going full speed with these kind of wide strides. And I think it scales nicely as he gets more and more confidence because he will be a guy that given space, he'll be a guy that's really hard to keep in front of you because of those long strides. And then he only has to get a little bit ahead of you to be able to finish over you. So I think for him, like you see the skill set that would make him a great offensive player, all around type of guy, but I could see him being a guy that is just a mismatch problem for a lot of teams that don't have a defender long and quick enough to be able to match that stride.
Yeah, he had a possession in the first half. I can't remember which guard he was going against. It might have been Christie, but it might have been one of the other smaller guards. But he rejected a screen at the top of the key. And to your point, like the guard recovered. The guard is quicker, so the guard recovers. But what happened is because he had that angle, because he had that initial bit of penetration, Cooper just dropped his right shoulder and like just bullied him into the middle of the lane on like this bump, then just went right down the lane for an easy little left-handed layup. And like, that's the thing is like, to me, the matchup attacking forward is actually sneaky one of the most important types of counters to modern ball pressure defense. I was thinking about this last night in the Celtics game. Like, you look at all these guards for Boston that look pretty uncomfortable. And like even Derek White, he's hitting shots, but they're like these tough contested pull-up jump shots. And then you watch Jaylen Brown, and he's like the one dude who's comfortable against Detroit because he's just powering through these guards, getting right to the front of the rim over and over. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, man, like that's what Jason Tatum can help bring too when he comes back. It's just like another counter for that. And there's all these teams around the league. Detroit's an example. Oklahoma City's an example. I think Indiana, when they're healthy, is an example. Golden State's an example where they just have all these dudes that are like 6'3" to 6'4" that are like pretty quick and they get up into the ball. When you've got a dude who's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", who can handle and can protect the ball against pressure and can beat that pressure with physicality going towards the rim, that is the breaking point for those ball pressure teams when they're just too small on the perimeter. Yeah. And so Cooper just represents another guy like that can be a counter to that type of defense.
Let's wrap up the show today by talking about something. Now, I want to say something. I made this comment the other day, either on the show or somewhere else, and people say, "Man, do you hate the game? Do you hate the game?" People have to understand something. Some people have to understand something about what the degree to which basketball is my life. I watch an NBA game every night of the week. Pretty much every night of the week, I'm watching some game because I love it that much. I'm playing the game, although increasingly less so as I get older. But I played the game, in my 20s. It was
We were
5
out there
times a
last
week.
week.
We were out there
hooping a
last
little bit.
week. I'm still recovering from it. I coach basketball multiple times this week. I've coached from elementary school all the way to high school over my career. It's one of my favorite things to do is to train. I've done individual training. I love the game of basketball. And I love I love it in so many different ways, from an X's and O's standpoint, from an individual skill standpoint, from a narrative standpoint. I like it from all these different directions and at all levels. So when I make a critique of something about basketball, it's not because I hate it. It's actually because I love it so much that I want it to be like its purest form. I want to correct whatever things I think are weak about it. The last week has really highlighted how tough the end of close games in the NBA can be to watch from just an enjoyment standpoint. For one, you've got reviews, which we always want to get the plays right. But when both teams have their reviews going into the final 2 minutes, you can almost bet that there's going to be at least 1 or 2 reviews in the final 2 minutes that's going to chew up a lot of time. You got all the timeouts. You got all the foul drawing both directions, both intentional and then also just drawing them. And then the big thing that really gets under my skin is the idea of fouling up 3, which I understand. If you're up 3 and there's 10 seconds left, you should foul because it prevents the other team from tying the game. They have to go to the foul line. They can only get 2 points. I'm not blaming any team for doing it as unethical for doing it. I'm blaming a league, though, that allows what should be the most exciting part of basketball to become almost unwatchable. The Spurs game over the weekend, the Spurs Thunder, was the ultimate example of this because what a great game that was. And the last 30 seconds took 20 minutes to watch, and there was nothing exciting that happened other than foul shots. And in my opinion, so I just want to set the table here. I actually think it is a problem because at the end of the day, it's an entertainment product. And the most interesting part of the game is too often now devolving into the least interesting thing to watch, which is intentional fouls, reviews, and free throws. Do you agree at least with that premise?
No, I 100% agree with you. And I think the idea that this means you hate the NBA is foolish. Like, why wouldn't we want the best for the game? Like, I think that complacency is terrible for any industry. Like, why would you ever just be satisfied with the status quo? You've got to try to improve things. And I think that there's 2 different angles that you're getting at. I think the one with the intentional fouls to me falls under the umbrella of a larger concept that I've had, which is I want basketball games determined by basketball, not by gimmicks or non-basketball plays. So this is a pretty wide umbrella. So for instance, like when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is being defended by, I think it was Dylan Harper in that game down the stretch, and he shoots that fadeaway at the right elbow. And he deliberately kicks his feet out at like a 45-degree angle in a way where literally if he was in the gym by himself doing a shooting drill and there were no Spurs in the arena, he would have fallen over. Which no basketball player, I find me the video of Shai shooting a left shoulder fade and falling down in the gym by himself.
I always say this, by the way, when somebody draws a foul that way, I'm always like, would they have taken that shot in an open gym? If the answer is no, then are we sure that's a natural shooting motion? I don't know if it is.
Exactly. And so what happened there was in a big game, a big moment, we had a non-basketball play that resulted in free throws. I say the same thing with Luka when he's constantly doing that thing where he works down the lane line and then just jumps backwards into you or leans into you and throws up a shot. Like if we were playing pickup and you did that, I'd be like, that's a bad shot. What are you doing? Like, and I don't want that stuff rewarded with points. Similarly, at the tail end of a game, if you have a 3-point lead, guard the 3-point line. Show me you can get a stop. And I think it'd be much better for the television product if the other team had an opportunity to tie the game by shooting a 3, even if it is a heave over a contest. Like, I think the game of basketball is better when it's being played as a basketball game and not being played as like a trying to grab every single gimmick that you can. And so I would have a blanket rule as it pertains to officiating with scorers. And I'd be like, if it's a non-basketball play, it's side out of bounds. Or if it's a non-basketball play, automatic turnover. Like I would be brutal with that to get it out of the league. And then as far as the rule that you mentioned, I think it's pretty simple. Any intentional foul, it can't result in free throws in the final 2 minutes. Like any
So here's
intentional
what's
foul.
tough about that. And first of all, one thing people say is you can't allow the officials to, they need objective rules. They can't be subjective because now they have to make a call. Was it intentional? Was it not intentional? And I do think there's something to that. We'll get upset at some point in the future when a ref calls it unintentional and we feel it's intentional or vice versa. So I think that puts us in a weird spot that I understand. I don't think it's horrible for refs to make subjective calls. It happens in FIBA. When you watch FIBA and a guy flops, a ref will sit there and just look at him and maybe make the motion or whatever, but he'll make the subjective call of, I don't think that contact was sufficient and you were embellishing it. So I don't mind subjective calls, but I do think that to solve the problem of fouling up three, I don't think you can put it in the officials' hands to determine what was intentional or not. I think you have to make something more of a hardline rule that says this is just what happens in these moments. And I'll tell you one, if a foul happens in the backcourt in the final 30 seconds, I think the team should be able to either advance the ball a sideline out of bounds or take the free throws. It should almost be a decision because that rule alone will never be used. It's just that teams will stop fouling in the backcourt. That's the only thing that would happen there. So if you foul in the backcourt in the final 30 seconds, you're up three and you foul in the backcourt, the team can say, you know what, sideline out of bounds. We'll just take it as a sideline out of bounds, not a free throw.
What if you did to include the front court? Because let's say the team calls a timeout to advance the ball and you inbound the ball 35 feet from the basket because the team did a good job denying the 3-point line, and then the guy just runs out and grabs him. What if you just said any non-shooting foul in the final minute is like a free throw plus possession?
See,
so essentially emphasizing if that would essentially force the defense to defend traditionally. I do think that the point you're making too about subjectivity, like I do think subjectivity is just a natural part of officiating. I think that no different than hand checking. Like, oh, this guy's got his hands on him. Is it impeding progress or is it not? Or like there's a big call in the Laker game where Devin Booker came and grabbed the back of Jake LaRavia's jersey and swiped the ball down off of his leg. They reviewed it and the official came out and he's like, yeah, he was grabbing his jersey, but he didn't think it affected his forward momentum at all. It's like, that's a subjective call. And like, I'm more or less okay with that. That's literally the job. The job for the ref is to interpret the rule. And as far as I understand, a guy named Ben Dowsett ended up writing an article on this a couple of years ago. There's two different books with the NBA. There's the rule book and there's the case book. And from what I understand, the case book is what the officials use to kind of guide that subjectivity that we're talking about. So I do think that that's part of it. But again, I don't know if it's that backcourt rule you mentioned or if it's the non-shooting foul rule I mentioned. There's got to be some sort of attempt to make it so that we don't have this every single time a team has a 3-point lead late. By the way, you know what's really exciting and interesting? A guy shooting a three to tie the game in the final second.
It's the best. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the actual best when you're like, okay, can a player make a play here? Like that's what you want to see. Not can a coach come up with a thing that turns the game into a slog. It's not that ethical or non-ethical. Forget all of that. It's just boring. It's a bad product. If you never get game winners again, because we've sort of strategically schemed them out of ever having an opportunity to happen. That's bad for the league. But here's the problem with your fix. And maybe it's some hybrid of this. Forget the backcourt part. Maybe it's anything north of the foul line or whatever, behind the 3-point line, that you get that option. But if you allow it to be one foul and the ball, it's the only scenario in the entire game where it's actually more advantageous to be on offense than it is on defense for that way. Because if you're up three and a guy just drives to the basket and gets a contact, whatever, and now he gets a free throw and the ball, that's such an advantage. Now your 3-point lead means something less than it should mean in that moment. I would rather just instigate a team having to play defense rather than tilt the odds in favor of the offense even more so than they already are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's like my counter to that would be like, look at the alternative right now. The alternative right now is what we have. So for instance, like the alternative is you get beat off the dribble and you just hack the dude because you know he's going to get his 2 free throws and then you're going to get possession. And now we're in the exact same situation that we were in to start with. Like, I think ultimately, like it's so for instance, the conversation around the Elam ending. One of the big criticisms of the Elam ending is like, well, what if you have a game end on free throws? And every time I hear that, I'm like, they all end on free throws. I don't know, they're ending on free throws right now. Like, I don't know what you want us to do. Like, they're all ending this way. So, like, I think like a lot of times we can be like perfect can be the enemy of good,
Yeah,
and
for
like
sure.
we're just trying to improve the situation as much as we can. But I'm with you. I don't think there is a perfect solution, but I just would love to see them try something.
The one thing I'll say, I'm not a fan of the Elam ending in the regular season or in regulation, because I just think it makes the league history too different. Like there's a precedent for 48 minutes, and it is what it is. But what I will say is there's not a precedent for overtime. I think the Elam ending should be every overtime. Every overtime's like 1st to 12. And that way you never get double, triple overtime in this condensed regular season anyway. It's exciting. Overtimes would become must-see television, and it doesn't affect anything else with like stats and historical precedent.
Yeah, I love that idea. I also love
Yeah.
to see them try it and like do. How about do it in the cup? Like, what if the cup was the Elam ending? That'd be such a fun,
Ooh.
like random, like these 3 games that we play every year have the Elam ending. Like that'd be fun.
That could be interesting, actually. I'm not totally against that one. Let's end the show, though, by going to our FanDuel Duels of the Night. This is, of course, presented by FanDuel. You can use that promo code AllNBA whenever you sign up. And what do you know? There's just one game tonight because it's NBA Cup Championship night. Knicks versus Spurs. The Knicks are favored by 2.5. That game gets started at 8:30 Eastern time. All right. What happens tonight, JT? What's your prediction?
Super interesting matchups across the board here. I think Karl Anthony Towns did a number to Wendell Carter Jr. in his last matchup, and I wonder how much we're going to see like Wemby on Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson in this game in a way that like puts Luke Cornett or even a smaller player against Karl Anthony Towns. That's an interesting matchup. Jalen Brunson's going to be dealing with another load of guards that can handle him. He did really well against Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs, but that's an interesting matchup. How many minutes is Wemby going to play? You only play 21 minutes against the Thunder. This is just like a super interesting basketball game between two very different teams. And I know the Spurs have been the more impressive team as of late, but I view this as a coin flip. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks won this game at all.
Well, 2.5 is basically, I mean, that's a pretty tight line. So it's looking more or less like a coin flip. It does feel like the Spurs have the momentum coming into this because of some high profile wins. And then obviously if you beat the Thunder, you're going to have momentum at your back. But the Knicks have the biggest winning streak in the NBA right now at 5 games. They also have an enormous amount of momentum. So I'm actually pretty excited for this one. Who do you think would be bigger for to get the win?
That's a really good question. The easy answer is to say the Spurs because you're thinking young team, big kind of identifying accomplishment early in the season to give you belief. But this is a Knicks team that for years has struggled in super big high profile games. And so like them getting a big win over San Antonio would be a good validator for them. If you remember last year, they were like 0-8 versus the top 4 teams in the league. And like that was kind of the big cloud hanging over them. They were like overwhelmingly disappointing outside of the Celtics series last year. So like I think that I'm going to actually go with the Knicks because if the Knicks win this game, I feel like they're feeling really good about their opportunity to go win the Eastern Conference and kind of have that like identifying accomplishment early in the season.
If they move to 19-7, they're right now they're 2.5 games back of the Pistons. They've moved to 2 games, and that just feels like, I mean, that's striking distance for the 1 seed, which I feel like is a big deal. But I actually think it's bigger for San Antonio too, because if they get this one, I think they've already moved into this like Western Conference contender tier. And if you're Western Conference, that means you're a finals contender as well. And I just think they've vaulted themselves up now into that Denver-Houston tier. Throw the Lakers in there if you want, but they belong in that tier now. And to get a win here, I think is something you can kind of hang your hat on if they are able to get there. They'd be 19-7 as well, and a half game behind Denver for the 2 seed. So I do think it would vault them. But more importantly, we saw them good with Wemby. We saw them good without Wemby. Now everything comes together. And if they beat Thunder Knicks back to back as soon as he comes back, I feel like it would be a big message that it would send to the rest of the league of like, hey, you haven't yet seen us at full speed or full capacity, but you're about to. And I think that would be it'd be pretty exciting.
Dude, how fun was that Spurs Thunder game? That was
incredible.
Such an incredible basketball game until the end.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, until the last 30 seconds. That's why it was so stark, and it's why we had this conversation. Is the game was so awesome, and halfway through those 30 seconds of 20 minutes of real time, and we only moved 10 seconds on the game clock, I was like, "Yep, this is going to suck, isn't it? The whole rest of this clock is going to suck," and it did. You saw it coming. But the Spurs, man. They have really impressed me. As I said earlier, I was a proponent of them making a move, go get Giannis, do this or that. I kind of like Dylan Harper enough to say they might just have something between Castle, Vassell, Harper, Wemby that, you know what, just stay the course. This team might have a window that's open right now and be open for a really, really long time, and I'm kind of excited to see it. We got one super chat. It comes from, I don't know how to read that. Should the NBA go to 1 through 16 playoff series and combine both conferences? This is always a fun question. Where do you stand on this one? I have a take, but I want to hear what you think.
So, I mean, theoretically, you have like 6 or 7 really good teams, right? You have Detroit, you have New York, you've got Oklahoma City, the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Spurs, the Lakers. So you've got like 7 good teams and 5 of them are in the West. So in theory, by doing this, you'd get like a better chance to have some later round playoff series that could be really good. But it's just so untenable with the travel schedule. And there's also kind of like you mentioned the history early, like that seems like kind of a big mix to history as well in terms of the way the conferences are laid out. I just think like, it's not that I don't think it would be worth looking at. It's more just of all the list of the league's problems, I just think that's very far down the list.
I'm not a fan of it for the reason you said, not the travel. I don't think the travel matters that much more. In fact, if you're in the Western Conference and Portland and Memphis are a playoff series, you're already traveling east to west. So there's already enough travel in the Western Conference, which by the way, is another underrated part of the Western Conference. In the East, you have whole divisions that are within 100 miles of each other. And in the West, you might be separated by 5-6 states. Minnesota is nowhere near Portland. They're in the same division. They're separated by 2 time zones. But, I think the bigger thing for me is just the history and the rivalries. Like this is another take, and we could end on this take. I think this year is going to have it's going to be unbelievably contentious amongst fan bases in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City and Denver played last year. Oklahoma City won. It was a 7-game series. There's already a history there. If they match up again, it adds to the history and to a rivalry. Denver and Minnesota has some of that going on right now. San Antonio with Wembanyama and some of the things he said about the different things that him and Oklahoma City, there's a big clash there. There's just a lot of teams that you wouldn't call it a rivalry yet. But I think this year will officially push it into rivalry territory. Denver, LA has a history. I just think there's enough like right there right now to say fan bases are going to hate each other. That don't right now feel a certain way about each other. They're going to hate each other in this playoffs. And that makes for great storytelling.
And they're not going anywhere. Like, I mean, Denver maybe has the shortest window, and I think they probably have, like, I mean, they're not going to break up Jokic and Murray anytime in the next 2-3 years, you know? And then like Houston's not going anywhere. Like, San Antonio's on the rise. Oklahoma City's on the rise. Like even after LeBron retires, you're going to have to contend with Luka and Austin out in the conference. Anthony Edwards isn't going anywhere. Like that. These teams are going to be duking it out year after year here.
All right. Hit that outro music for us here, James. JT, what a great show, man. Excited for this.
That was my favorite one we've done so far.
We just keep getting better and better at these. These have been fun. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow, Steve Jones, the great Steve Jones, is going to be joining me on the show to break down whatever happens tonight with Victor Wembanyama, Karl-Anthony Towns. So tomorrow we'll have a show as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the Hoops Tonight over at The Volume. Make sure you're subscribed here and hit that like button on your way out. See you next time.
All silly like the mayor.